Welcome to the Three Corners Capital Education webinar. We host these to provide clients and prospective clients with insights and practical ideas that are directly or indirectly related to their finances and planning. In the world of financial advice, it's easy for people to focus on investing, but there are countless ways to enhance and improve your planning. A weird reality is that clients don't see the other side of their planning when they pass away. And part of our job is working with heirs, executors, trustees to manage through the estate settlement process. It's like the farmer's insurance commercial. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And that's really what led us to today's discussion. One area of growing complication is managing estate implications of digital assets. So things like your phones, email, social media, et cetera. And that's why I'm excited to have Jake Samad, who's a partner and attorney with Robbins, Kelly, Patterson, and Tucker in Cincinnati, one of the largest law firms in the city. So welcome, Jake, and thanks for bringing your expertise today. What I thought I would do to kick it off is, if you think about the time that you've been an attorney, technology has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Facebook was started in 2004. The iPhone came out in 2007. Instagram was launched in 2010, Google Drive in 2012. So how have all of these changes begun to impact and cause you to adapt your planning?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, when we first started doing the planning, or when I first started practicing, I mean, we were dealing with financial accounts, tangible personal property, real estate, life insurance, retirement, those sorts of things. We weren't dealing with your social media footprint or your digital keychains for your cryptocurrency or anything like that. So over time, we've had to adapt a lot of the documents that we prepare to include provisions that give people the requisite authority to be able to administer these types of things when something happens to a client. Our financial power of attorney has changed to include provisions that allow your agent to have access to your digital accounts, your online profiles, those sorts of things. And ultimately, our process for the administration of trusts and estates has had to change as well, as we've had to kind of evolve to deal with these new types of assets. It used to be that clients would have a safe deposit box where they would keep all of their valuable, tangible personal property or wills and other important documents. And quickly, we would realize that people forget to add precautionary measures to their safe deposit box. So they're putting these things in this box for safekeeping, but they're not giving anyone any access to the safe deposit box. You're probably wondering why I'm referencing such an outdated example as a safe deposit box when we're talking about digital assets, but it's not much different. I mean, just how we had to handle safe deposit boxes, we have to think now about these digital assets pretty similarly. And so we need to make sure that the people we're leaving behind or are appointing to help us manage our affairs while we're living but incapacitated have the requisite authority and access to these types of assets.
So let's talk practically. What are some tips that you have for people, maybe at the easiest level, like things like emails, online banking, or other accounts? What are some tips and tricks that people should be following?
Yeah, so just like when we try to plan effectively for the administration of someone's trust or their estate, we want to have a good list of all of the things that could be implicated if someone is either incapacitated or has passed away. So a good list of all of the different accounts that you have with usernames and passwords is always helpful, although it does require you to kind of stay on top of things because if you're anything like me, you frequently require the forgot password button to reset things. And so your passwords change from time to time. It's important to keep that listing of all of your your Gmail account, your Yahoo account, all those things updated so that we have access to them and we know what is most current. Because without that, there are additional ways to get into those accounts. And if your documents are drafted appropriately, your representatives will have the authority that they need to contact the companies directly. However, it's kind of like trying to figure out how to get into a safe deposit box when you don't have a key. You have to do a bunch more work than you would have otherwise had to do if we just had the information available to us. So while it's not a terribly popular answer, I think the best answer is to try to figure out how to keep all of your usernames and passwords organized in such a way that your helpers are going to be able to access that information if something happens to you.
Hmm. Right. So, I know a lot of people access their phone, with biometric things, whether it's a fingerprint or your face and so forth. Um, what do you recommend for, clients who use those things and, how is someone going to get into their phone?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to scan your retina when you can't open your eyes. So we do like to have backup plans there. One of the things, I know for me, I'm an iPhone user, so there's a passcode that you can access your phone with without having to use the biometric markers. Ultimately, I think having that backup plan is really important so that the only access point should not be tied to a biometric marker because ultimately those are only here for as long as you are. And in keeping all of your other passwords and accounts organized, you can keep track of what those additional passwords can be. So I would make sure that for any asset that you access using a biometric marker, you at least have some safety valve where there's a code or password that you can use to access that device.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't own any cryptocurrencies personally, but I'm sure you probably have some clients who do. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah,
Access.
so it kind of depends. I mean, obviously now we have funds where you can invest generally in cryptocurrency. Those funds are handled just like any other security. So they're titled either in an account or you own them individually. We want to make sure that a beneficiary is designated for those types of crypto investments. However, if you own cryptocurrency directly, typically you have a keychain or some type of password that gives you access to that crypto asset. And so, again, having some backup of that information so that your helpers can have access to that account is critical. I can't tell you how many times we've had clients who haven't been able to replicate their keychain or their key to their cryptocurrency, and it's effectively lost. So it really is critical when you consider the types of assets that you hold, making sure that the requisite information to access them is available to your helpers.
Yeah, thanks. And again, that's a perfect example of a unintended negative consequence with real impact financially. Maybe in a similar vein, but somewhat different. Just in terms of social media, nowadays, it's maybe not easy, but people are creating followings and they can monetize their following. Obviously, I think it sounds like to some degree, username and password sharing to get onto a social media site is needed. But are there other things that people should be thinking about? I mean, if they're, we have some clients, for example, and I'm sure you do as well, that have are kind of, influencers and they're monetizing their social media. Are there other kind of digital asset considerations as a part of their estate planning they should be working with someone like you to resolve?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple things that you may want to consider when you are monetizing your image or likeness. The idea there is that you have an intellectual property interest potentially that you want to protect. And so you need to figure out how to not only give people access to your accounts and the platform so that they can access the information, but also you need to figure out how to assign that interest or somehow figure out how to coordinate your monetary value in those accounts with your plan. So it is something that people need to think about through the planning process, just like we coordinate life insurance, retirement accounts, real estate. We also need to be thinking about coordinating any of those types of interests for your very influential clients.
Very interesting. So, I'm curious, and I can't help but ask about, the lost cryptocurrency, for example. Do you think there are more laws and regulations needed to address all of these, digital assets?
Steve, I don't know the answer to that. I tend to be a guy who likes less laws and regulation. It might be funny coming from me, but I think as we move forward into a world in which this becomes much more common, I anticipate that there will be more regulation. Specifically, if we get to a world in which cryptocurrency becomes more ubiquitous. I mean, I think it's still something that people are testing out and we're playing a little bit on the fringes of. But when it becomes much more common, I think, yes, regulation tends to follow, and there will likely be a more convenient way to make sure that you're able to transition assets when you yourself transition.
Yeah, maybe something like like financial institutions and beneficiary designation, so it's not so much keychain, driven.
That's right. And I mean, you're starting to see that with the various funds, right, that you can invest in that give you access to the investment opportunity, but also give you the convenience of investing in an actual account that you guys can manage or whatever else. I think though that's probably more likely what we'll see in the short term, more user-friendly access. But eventually, yes, I think there will be additional regulation and things that come alongside all of our crypto investing friends.
Yeah, great. Maybe kind of a concluding question. It really more comes from some conversations I've had with other advisors. We have not had this experience internally, but dealing with kind of multiple succession of trustees and data that's shared either, someone might have a Google Drive or something where information on the estate settlement process gets lost. So if you have like two like co-trustees, for example, and one passes away, but one was maybe doing more of the work or had the data, or you've got a trustee who passes away and then you're going to a successor trustee, but that successor trustee doesn't know where things are at. What guidance, if you're a trustee, or successor trustee, like how should people be thinking about that as a part of their
It's a
plan?
good question. I think, I mean, ultimately, I mean, I guess knock on wood here, I have not yet had that experience in my 17 years of practice, but ultimately it kind of goes back to the initial thought of who a good trustee would be, right? You want to make sure that you're naming someone who has the ability to administratively manage everything that needs to be done by a trustee or an executor. And so picking those people on the front end is obviously your first line of defense here. Then thinking through what that means for them. I mean, ultimately, trustees should be advised by counsel. Obviously, that's self-serving for me to say, but I do think it's helpful because then you'll have at least some ability to have continuity if someone like me is helping administer the trust. That if one of the trustees passes away, we move on to the next person. And, in our document management software, we have the listing of all the information that was necessary. If people are handling it on their own, then that can be a very real problem because really the person doing the planning planned to name the right people, but now the people that they've named are kind of dropping the ball in the administrative phase that the person who created the trust won't be around to see anyway, to your earlier point. So yeah, I mean, I think naming appropriate people is really important, but then also making sure that they understand that they have an obligation and really a duty, responsibility to make sure that they're managing that information appropriately is important.
Great. Well, Jake, we really appreciate your time today. I would be remiss not to share contact information because I know some of this, is just scratching the surface and people may have questions and want some additional professional guidance that we can't provide, but you certainly could. And for those, listening that are clients, just want to plant the seed that, part of our job as advisors, again, is to be more than just investments and thinking all through various aspects of someone's financial planning. And we'll be working more this year with clients to enhance kind of deliverables that they can have to ensure that areas like digital assets are better planned as a part of their estate planning, not just with the work that we do around beneficiaries. So again, Jake, thanks so much for being with us and for all you do for those that you serve.
Thank you, Chris and Steve. I appreciate you guys and your thought leadership in this area. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.